Welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate, Michelle Firestone, and it's a joy to be with you today on this lovely day. Community Church is a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action, as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Please look to your weekly email for announcements. We're delighted to welcome Jim O'Neill in our pulpit today. Jim is a member of our church. Just a quick announcement, in case anyone was wondering, the St. Patrick's Day parade party at the Malones is canceled today, as is the parade itself. So don't go to the Malone's house looking for a party. Please join me in reading our land acknowledgement on the back of your order of service. We acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land. The city of New Orleans is a continuation of an indigenous trade hub on the Mississippi River, known for thousands of years as Blanche. Tribes that have lived on this land include the Caddo, the Natchez, the Choctaw, Chitimacha, Puma, Tunica, Biloxi, and Hattaway-Ishaq, among others. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and involuntary removals, Native Americans were often forced from their lands. We remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial, and the resilient voices of Native Americans remain an inseparable part of our local culture. With gratitude and honor, we acknowledge the indigenous nations that have lived and continue to thrive here. It is our custom to light a chalice, invoking hope and eternal truth and wisdom, eternal truth to our worship. Please join us in singing the words of chalice lighting in your order of service. The words are printed in your order of service. Please join me in our opening words, printed in your hymnal, number 442. I'll read the regular print and you read the italicized print. We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirit seeking rest.
Who come with troubles that are too much to you, who come hurt and afraid.
We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart.
Who come with anticipation in your death, who come proud and joyous.
We bid you welcome, who are seekers of a new faith.
Who come to hope and explore, who come to learn.
We bid you welcome, who enter this hall as a homecoming.
Who come in your room with the Spirit, who find this people family.
Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are in your journey.
We bid you welcome.
Good morning, you brave souls who have weathered the storm. Pretty fierce. On the other hand, it's St. Patrick's Day, And Ireland is known for its greenery, which of course comes from all the rain. So happy St. Patty's Day to you. So the time for our ages, all for, of course, the children, but it's also for the child in each of us. And I want to begin with a poem I wrote some time ago. It's called Many Parts of Me. I have this split within my soul. Each clashing culture wants to own me. The German rules in daylight, Achtung, demanding attention to discipline, work. While under cover of the gentler moon, an Irish poet breaks free in song and verse. Even my little bit of French must have it say, Oui, oui, mon chéri, it's time to play. I invite you, young and old, to close your eyes, to imagine the many parts of you, and welcome all your unique heritage and all the parts that make you who you are. We are more whole when all parts are welcome and embraced. A moment of silence. To conclude our time for all ages, I invite you to read with me 445, The Womb of Stars from the hymnal. Number 445, The Womb of Stars. The womb of stars embraces us. Remnants of their fiery furnaces pulse through our veins.
We are as the stars, the dust of the explosions cast across space.
We are of the earth. We breathe and live in the breath of ancient plants and beasts.
Their cells nourish the soil. We build our communities on their harvest of gifts.
Our fingers trace the curves carved in clay and stone by forebears unknown to us.
We are a part of the great circle of humanity, gathered around the fire, the hearth, the altar.
We gather anew this day to celebrate a common heritage.
May we recall in gratitude all that has given us birth.
Now, can we sing out the children wherever they are? Our hymn is number 191. Now I recall my childhood. first reading is from the 13th century poet, Rumi, from the book The Essential Rumi. It's entitled The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Rumi's Guest House is one of my favorite poems because he's describing my experience, and perhaps yours, of being human. But what he is suggesting is really hard to live because he's advocating radical acceptance. No, not just acceptance, but welcoming of whatever comes in life. Surely he can't mean welcoming tragedy and loss along with life's gifts and loves. And yet, what if we just experimented with that attitude? Let me give you a personal example. The flooding after Hurricane Katrina, like some of you have also experienced, did exactly to us what Rumi described. It, quote, violently swept our house empty of its furniture. I can still see the pile of debris in our front yard as we cleaned out a flooded uptown home. It took months of living out of town with family and meeting with FEMA and the Road Home program. But on Vera's birthday, in March of 2006, we moved into a new home in Prairieville, Louisiana. And not long after that, found a new spiritual community at the Unitarian Church in Baton Rouge. Those were the new delights that we never would have had without the Katrina experience. Even how we found that home still amazes me. We were living in Vera's brother's home in Gaydon, Louisiana. I was commuting 140 miles to Metairie to reestablish my counseling service, staying at my sister's home. I started looking in for sale by owner, and one day we were driving from one prospective home to another when we passed a lovely Acadian-style brick home, and I said to Vera, now that's what we're looking for. And she said, Jim, don't start. There's no for sale sign. A few weeks later, I saw a house online with photos, interior photos, that looked like it might fit us. It was only when I actually drove there and saw it that I realized it was the same home I had pointed out a few weeks earlier. Listening to my intuition and imagination led us to our new home. Rumi challenges us to the wholeness of embracing not only all of life's experiences, but all parts of ourselves. As Parker Palmer put it in his book, on the brink of everything: grace, gravity, and getting old. Quote, "There are no shortcuts to wholeness. The only way to become whole is to put your arms lovingly around everything we know ourselves to be. Self-serving and generous, spiteful and compassionate, cowardly and courageous, treacherous and trustworthy. We must be able to say to ourselves and to the world at large, quote, 'I am all of the above.' Palmer's mantra is, quote, 'Wholeness is the goal,' but wholeness does not mean perfection. It means embracing brokenness as an integral part of life. Embracing all of life is exactly what we do now in our ritual of joys and sorrows."
Yeah. Yeah. Hello?
Now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you're online, you may write your joys and sorrows in the comments section to be read aloud. In person, you may write them on one of the cards being passed out by the greeters. Please remain seated as we sing hymn number 147, "When All the Peoples on the Earth, on this Earth."
So we sing verse 1, 2, and then back to 1.
We'll light a candle for Alan Malone, who is currently in the hospital. That's actually, whether or no weather, they were going to have to cancel the party today because he has an infection, a UTI, and he's on IV antibiotics in the hospital. So we wish him well. And we have a sorrow from Prashanti. I can't drink caffeine easily. Joy, I brought some instant packs of decaf to share. Enjoy. From Alicia Cook, grateful we've maintained online services today. Yes. It's hard to travel and enjoy Jim's service. Agreed. Okay. We'll light 2 more candles, one for the joys still bubbling up, too new to share, and one for the sorrows that we cannot yet put into words. Know that we hold you in our hearts.
Our second reading today is from Mary Oliver's book, Upstream. I am myself, she says, 3 cells at least. To begin with, there is the child I was. I am not that child anymore. Yet distantly, or sometimes not so distantly, I can hear that child's voice. I can feel its hope or its distress. It has not vanished. Powerful, egotistical, insinuating, its presence rises in memory or from the steamy river of dreams. It is not gone, not by a long shot. It is with me in the present hour. It will be with me in the grave. And then there is the attentive social self. This is the smiler and the doorkeeper. This is the portion that winds the clock, when you still had clocks that you could wind, that steers through the dalliance of life, that keeps in mind appointments that must be made and then met. It is fettered to 1,000 notions of obligation. It moves across the hours of the day as though movement itself were the whole task. Whether it gathers as it goes some branch of wisdom or delight, or nothing at all, is a matter with which it is hardly concerned. What this self hears night and day, what it loves beyond all other songs, is the endless bringing forward of the clock. Those measures strict and vivacious, and full of certainty. Certainly there is within us a self that is neither child nor servant of the hours. There is a third self. Occasional in some of us, tyrant in others, this self is out of love with the ordinary. It is out of love with time. It has a hunger for eternity. Intellectual work sometimes, spiritual work certainly, artistic work always. These are forces that fall within its grasp. Forces that must travel beyond the realm of the hour and the restraint of the habit. No artist could go about this work, or would want to, with less than extraordinary energy and concentration. The extraordinary is what art is about. Neither is it possible to control or regulate the machinery of creativity. One must work with the creative powers, for not to work with it is to work against. In art, as in spiritual life, there is no neutral place. To achieve wholeness, we need all 3 of the selves Mary Oliver talks about. The child, the attentive social self, the smiler and doorkeeper, and the creative self that hungers for eternity. In the days of transactional analysis, it was helpful to identify 3 other parts, similar. The parent part, with its rules and expectations, the child with its enthusiasm and roller coaster of emotions, and the adult, mindfully aware of its responsibility to honor all parts of oneself and of others. or if you are of the Freudian view, the superego, ego, and it. However you describe it, it is clear we humans are complex, even contradictory creatures. And we are at our best when we find a way to embrace all of this being human in ourselves and others. So how do we go about that? You know many of the ways already. Meditation, journaling, therapy, creative endeavors, playtime, and spiritual practices. But Parker Palmer adds a few more. He suggests, reach out to the young, not just to mentor, but to be energized and learn. Move towards what you feel, not away from it, but through it. And spend time in nature. She will hold you lovingly, teach you what you need to know about living, about transformation or change, and about dying. Now back to the process of getting at home in Prairieville. It was not easy. There was a lot of frustration, anger, disappointments, and uncertainty. A lot of what Michael Meade would call second layer stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit about that a little later. The 3 layers of human interaction. So that was a lot of the second layer, the difficult stuff that we needed to get through. And we needed all parts of ourselves to get through it. We needed to listen to the child parts that were grieving over all that we had lost and would never be able to regain. Our home on Vincennes Place had been flooded with 5 feet of water. We needed our practical, realistic adult parts to persist in going through all the hoops, challenges, and bureaucracy. We needed the humility to accept the generosity and hospitality of family. We needed to accept that it was not realistic for us to renovate our severely damaged uptown home of 29 years. But as you heard in our story, it also took the creative or imaginative part to see new possibilities for our lives and to reach for those. And the imaginative or creative process never stops. Because as commuting from Prairieville to my practice in Metairie became tedious, I began to imagine, what if we found a place in Metairie? A double, so we could rent part of it and be able to spend my working days in Metairie and the weekends in the country. What I could imagine happened. When we found our home in Metairie with an attached townhouse we could rent, which we did for years, until the COVID pandemic came and lockdowns swept through our country, changing all our lives again and throwing us all into the second layer of human interaction. Suddenly, loving family and relatives, caring neighbors were potentially dangerous, even deadly. We needed to wear masks and wash hands and avoid all gatherings, the gatherings that help us to reach the third layer of human interaction, that of deep, peaceful unity and community, the realm of brotherhood and sisterhood, the realm of spiritual ecstasy. Paradoxically, out of care for ourselves and others, we had to isolate or quarantine to protect. Lots of connections became weak, frayed, or broken. Losing touch, literally and figuratively, and living in fear of the spread of the pandemic. That crisis could have ended community church when we couldn't come to church, but it didn't. We met that crisis by pivoting to new skills of virtual services. And members stepped up to provide sermons or invite in ministers when we had no minister. Did the way we met that crisis weaken us or make us stronger? I leave that for you to decide. But I think both. We lost some members and we gained some strength from those who stayed. We also welcomed new members who came. And now we have every Sunday a physical presence for those who can come and a virtual presence on a day like today. That's a really good idea for those who can't. In other words, an event like the pandemic will bring change, death, and/or transformation. I wouldn't say we welcome the change, but we did not ignore, run from it, or avoid it. We found within ourselves the commitment to be a community even when we couldn't physically touch. To be continued.
Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccunola.org/stewardship or by text at 504-370-2659. Text GIVE. And you can give in person this morning. Please remain seated for our offertory number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
What I've been thinking about recently is that our country has for some time been in what Michael Meade calls the second layer of human interaction. To put it simply, the first layer is, quote, the common ground of manners, kind speech, polite greetings, and working agreements or rules. When we say good morning and how are you, and we say, fine, how are you, even though that may or may not be true. But it's a way to keep common life going. Now the third layer is our deeply shared humanity, our fundamental unity in justice, love, and peace. I've heard some people mention that occasionally on some Sundays they experience the third layer here in this community. That maybe perhaps why some of us come to feel the deepest level of our connection with one another and with life. Now, what about that second layer? It is the territory of anger, hatred, wrath, rage, jealousy, envy, and contempt. And while there are many suggesting that we go back to living on the first layer, where everyone is nice and courteous, it won't and can't happen, because in those good old days, our deep underlying divisions and conflicts, prejudices and inequities were bubbling right under the surface. And once they have erupted, it's like a volcano burning all in its path with hot lava. You have to deal with it. You can't just put a cork in it and believe that things will, quote, cool off. What the pandemic exposed is that, like it or not, we are a world community. And we can't build walls high enough to keep out the reality that we are part of an interdependent web of existence. What impacts other humans on our small blue boat home impacts us sooner or later. Let me correct that. We are currently so interrelated that there is very little later. Of ours yesterday in some other part of the world will likely show up here today. I recently saw a news documentary interviewing doctors and scientists who are working very hard to prepare for and protect us from the inevitable next pandemic. Why? Because we humans continue to encroach and diminish wild habitat, we are setting ourselves up for the next virus to make the jump from animals or bats to humans. So if the third world communities are not protected, we are not protected. No immigration policy, no border walls will protect us. So what are we to do? Michael Meade tells us more bad news. That the third layer of mystical harmony is not where it was yesterday, and it leaves no forwarding address. So if you experienced it here one Sunday, and you come back next Sunday because it's going to be here, no, it might have moved on to somewhere else. You know, Carl Jung tells the story of this wonderful underground stream that surfaced and had living water that refreshed people and healed, etc. And so people came and they built a marvelous church around that living stream. And people came every Sunday to be refreshed and invigorated by it, except this stream dried up and moved on. And people kept coming, but the well was dry. So there's more bad news. Meade tells us the only way to the third layer of universal sisterhood and brotherhood, true spiritual peace, is through the second layer, which means dealing with the terrible messes we humans have created, with our egocentric patterns of pride, greed, prejudice, and hatred. Listen to Meade's description of the second layer. It's not pretty. It is a stove that seethes with adverse, acidic, acritic, avarice, acrimonious, angry stew. It bubbles with feelings, emotions, and indelible attitudes we'd rather not have, wouldn't choose, and shouldn't express. So if avoiding the second layer is impossible, how do we deal with it? I don't have all the answers for that, and neither does me. But escalating conflicts and divisions with reactive hostility is clearly not working. It is pushing us deeper into the misery of hate, division, and violence. The modern version of Dante's Inferno, or Camus' Hell is the other. The beginnings of a pathway through the second layer to living in peace and harmony was offered to us by Rumi's guest house. Radical acceptance of our reality moment to moment, and even welcoming what it brings us or teaches us. So much misery is created by refusing to accept whatever is happening in our lives that we don't want and haven't chosen, but is visiting us nonetheless. And then there are expectations. A friend and colleague of mine calls unrealistic expectations premeditated misery. You get that? Expecting others to change, expecting life to be different is wasted energy. Now, I'm not saying that a crisis in our life doesn't bring suffering. They do. But you may be familiar with the Chinese symbol for crisis. It is a combination of the symbols for danger and opportunity. Yes, it is wise to be aware of the dangers that come our way, but it's also important that we're open to the opportunities to provide, to grow, to change, to, as is the popular phrase now, to pivot. We heard Tanya talk last week about the original Serenity Prayer. It wasn't about God help us to accept the things we could change. It was God give me the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, but courage to change the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. The most obvious example of that change that should be made is the crisis of global climate change, which offers us the opportunity to pivot away from fossil fuels to the other energy sources that are now available, whether it be solar or wind. When we refuse to accept the changes that should be made, or lack the courage to work for that change, we bring immense suffering on ourselves, and it's unnecessary neurotic suffering, rather than the transformative suffering that comes when we embrace reality and adjust to its current demands. The hopeful message, and there is one, in our crises today, is that new life, direction, and harmony can spring up after the defeating of our male-dominated white supremacy culture. Thomas Burton said that, quote, there is in all visible things a hidden wholeness, unquote. But that wholeness is not either light or darkness, death or life, but all held together in the paradox of hidden wholeness. Just as we accept there's no spring without the death of winter, so this current painful period of random violence, political discord, and attacks on our democracy are inviting us to dig deep, to fully embrace all humanity and all humans, however diverse they may be. How long must we suffer these birthing pains before a new day dawns, a greater unity and peace? I have no idea. But we can't avoid the work of the second layer. We're in it, and the only way out of it is through it. On this St. Patrick's Day, I'm reminded of another country which was divided in conflict and violence for years. Northern Ireland. Their troubles erupted in 1960 and went on until 1998, when some peace was realized. I hope we find our way through our troubles to once again not be the divided states, but the United States of America. I heard a metaphor the other day. Did you know that buffaloes, when caught in a fierce snowstorm, do not run away like cattle? The buffaloes turn, face the storm, and move into it and through it. So they walk through and out of the storm while the cattle are still running from it as the storm pursues them. So we best buffalo our way through these very difficult times, meeting each new storm. But it helps, doesn't it, if we do it together with warmth and support of this community. We're all in this together, and only by welcoming all parts of ourselves and all of our experiences and all of our fellow travelers on this planet, with curiosity and compassion, can we find our way through the conflict, pain, and suffering of our human condition to the peaceful coexistence and celebration we deeply desire. Amen, and may it be so.
Please join me in the words for chalice extinguishing. We extinguish the chalice here, that it may flow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again.
I have adapted the Irish blessing for our benediction. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft, not like today, but fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may the earth hold you lovingly in the palm of her hand. Our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Oh,
Please join us for refreshments and fellowship in the fellowship hall.